and I want to see how today's trading day, Friday, plays out in relation to earnings coming on Monday, of course, after hours. So we have Monday prior to earnings as well. But I really want to get this video out now. I think it's very important, guys. I want to go over a few different things with AMC, things going on right now inside of the company. Of course, a little bit of the options chain, at least as relevant as it is at this point. And I want to go over what history has a tendency of telling us and about earnings, right? And I want to kind of weigh our options. Is earnings a catalyst worth looking at? Because I think it is. I've dug through kind of the last 3 quarters, the 3 reports, and I think it's more important than a lot of people give credit to. Remember, AMC is not necessarily a fundamental play, but a catalyst is a catalyst, right? Whether it's a fundamental play or not, if it can help to, remember, trip some wires, I'm all for it. So let's jump in here. Let's go head into the main chart, guys. Again, I'm looking at the last 3 quarters. I did a little bit of digging. Let's go through each one kind of one by one. First off, Q4 of 2020 reported on March 10th of course, this year, 2021. First off, let me point out a little bit of a trend. For the last 3 quarters, each time we've reported, what we've seen is perhaps a day or two of red, followed by a little bit of a run, kind of with the exception of the Q4 2020 report. We got a bit of a run for about a week until we pulled back and consolidated for, of course, about 2 months. And then it took that Q1 of 2020.
I gotta go pee. I'll be right back.
It kind of
I'm streaming. Weren't you supposed to be in the gym? Yeah. We're probably not gonna go.
Really
probably just gonna do some homework out.
Essentially 10xing in a matter.
Hello, Dad. How are you?
Q4.
How are you, cutie patootie?
Of 2020, guys. Let's take a look. Now, if you look here, guys, Q4 of 2020, expectations were EPS of minus 3.12. Revenue was 142.35 million. Okay, now we missed on EPS by a little under 1%. On revenue, we actually beat by over 14%. You can see right here, right? So I'm not necessarily so convinced that we need to see a beat on both. But I think that given the last, at least prior to last quarter's report, if you look here, and then we'll go over Q1 as well. If you look here, Q2 of 2021, when that was reported on August 9th, it was incredibly impressive.
Juicy games.
Now, that was great at the time, of course, because that led to this run, what ended up being this little bit of a run.
He probably did.
That was, of course, what was that here? A run of something like 60%. Okay,
I'm probably gonna go. I'm going tomorrow for sure.
But now we're at a point where we're about to report another earnings, and that's
I need to catch up. I need a power level today.
High, I think. Now we can see that here. If you take a look at Wall Street's expectations, we're seeing EPS expectations of minus 0.54, revenue of 733 million. Compare that with just last quarter's report. Expected EPS was minus 0.96, revenue 382 million. Our expected revenue has just about doubled. Okay, now, is that a good thing? Remember, guys, October was the best month we've seen since February 2020. Now, remember, October is not going to be included. That was actually Q4. But I have an expectation that each month of Q3 was actually relatively good. So the expectations here now for Q3 are about twice as good as we saw in Q2. So let's compare Q1 to Q2 and see what those were looking like at the time. Q1 expected minus 1.42, revenue 157 million. It was very similar, guys. Again, Q2 expected 382 million, expected EPS minus 0.96, and we beat that by a mile. 25% EPS, 16% revenue. So, kind of what do I expect heading into Monday? Again, October being the best month that they've seen since February 2020. I kind of expect a lot, okay? And I think other people do as well, which isn't necessarily a great thing.
I'm on the way home to shower and
but I think it's going to take a beat on both, at least a healthy beat on both, to see the stock rise within a couple of days. I don't necessarily expect the stock to rocket as soon as earnings come out. Typically, again, if we take a look back, it's very common to see a day or two of red, but that day or two after earnings.
Oh, these are earnings? Cool. So typically we have 2 days of red after earnings report. Typically. I wouldn't even say that. I would say we almost always have like kind of like a run up after earnings report, especially this earnings report.
A hell of a lot, at least to me. I'm more so looking at the
that's actually what my mile is
3
too.
weeks after earnings to really
11
see
minutes.
how the market can handle that information. I think as long as we
that's
see
pretty
a
damn
healthy
good.
beat
I
on
actually
both
I got
earnings
mine
per
down
share
there.
and
Whenever I
revenue,
was going to
I
the
think
gym every day, I
within
got
the
my
next 2-3
mile down
weeks,
to 9
we will
minutes.
see the stock
That's my
rise, hopefully breaking out
my
of this
PB.
channel from about 38 to about 43. This one has been a hell of a
What
ride.
was that?
You can see here in the history, 43 has been a tough area to break, especially in hold.
Yeah, 9 minutes was my
Now,
PB.
keep in mind, when Q2 was released, the stock was sitting closer down to 32, 31. So again, you're looking at, if you look at market cap there, you're going to have a more sustained reaction. And then after it got to a high of 51, 52, we of course pulled back to about where we're sitting right now. Is it going to take a more impressive beat to break out of this channel that we're in currently? Personally, I'm not convinced that it's going to take these two numbers here again on percentages to make the stock move. Why do I think that? Well, the numbers we were dealing with last time around were about half the size, or at least half as good, right? So when you're dealing with a larger number, let's look specifically at revenue, because that's a little bit more what I'm concerned with, at least right now. When we're dealing with a number now more like 730 million, it's, of course, in my eyes, going to take a less aggressive percentage beat to make the stock move. Okay, now let me be clear. If we see a miss on either EPS or revenue, I think the stock, I don't think it's going to fall, to be honest with you, but I think we might see consolidation for another week, 2 weeks. I don't think it's going to be enough, even if we see a good beat on either one, to really make it move, even though that's what we saw back in Q4 2020 and Q1 2021.
It used to be like
We've set ourselves up to have high
20
expectations
minutes?
now with last quarter.
20 minutes? What the fuck? You're walking! Yeah, he's got the 3 months. Oh, fuck, it hurts. Ow, ow. There's something crusted on my leg here.
Quarter's report being so great, comparatively speaking, to what the expectations were. Okay, so if we were to see, again, with EPS, as long as
you had to be walking.
I'm happy. Okay, I'm more concerned right now with revenue. If we were to see, let's say 750 to 800 on revenue reported, I think that's going to be kind of the range of what real expectations are. Wall Street expectations 733. In my opinion, I see that maybe as a little bit low. I've gauged expectations, at least in my head, to be a little bit higher than that, considering Q1 to Q2 was about the same stepping stone. Okay, I think this right here, this would be right about at expectations. I think that would be good, and as long as we see this meet, I think that might be enough to make the stock bump a little bit. If all of a sudden we get a report Monday evening, Monday afternoon, and we see $1 billion reported, do I think it's going to happen? No, not necessarily. But $1 billion's a magic number. If we saw that, I think the stock might go a little bit nuts in the next 2 to 3 weeks after that report. Do I want you guys going
Make
out
me
looking
money,
for
jabroni.
$1 billion on earnings?
Oh, put into AMC. I've been telling you. Just let it sit. Let it run.
In revenue? No, okay, because that would be an incredibly impressive beat. I'm just throwing the possibility out there because it's certainly not completely off the board. I think realistically, anything over this 800 million number would be quite the incredible earnings, as long as EPS holds up to a reasonable degree. That being said, I would be happy really with anything 750 and up, being more.
You have AMC? How much AMC do you have? And when did you get in?
Of a reasonable investor that would make that I would be completely content with that, again, as long as EPS is there. Now, as far as a catalyst goes,
oh buddy,
again, guys, I don't think earnings are going to be the only catalyst. I think what it would be is that stepping stone catalyst to bring more FOMO back into the stock. Money
but if you want them like actual like long time stocks, look up Array. Array Technologies is a solar company. They're doing some shit that most solar companies don't do. They're pretty insane. I think it's like a steal right now, getting them at $22. I don't remember, to be honest. Go look at your account, dude. An actual stock. If you want an actual stock, dude, you should do it right.
lines and has known about AMC kind of the entire time. It's
Don't look
there's
at that.
no longer that wall to break
Days?
through. They've heard about the stock for nearly a year now.
No.
All of a sudden they hear AMC is running. I think that FOMO might be a little bit easier. There's no longer that barrier to entry, so to speak. They now know what the stock has been capable of in the past. You have to remember that the stock has been, for the better part of 4 months now, consolidating kind of between 50 and 30. We've been sitting in that channel, bouncing back and forth for that entire time. I'm sure a lot of eyes that were kind of half in, half out
of dog shit
have walked away. But that doesn't mean they're not willing to come back, given a little bit of a run and contribute to that FOMO. And to be honest with you guys, the fact that the stock is holding at 40 after 4 months of essentially equilibrium of that channel, after 4 months of bouncing between what seems to be 30 and 50, that's rather incredible. You would expect after about a month for a lot of retail to kind of move on and get bored. The attention spans are not incredibly long, but honestly, guys, the way the stock has been holding,
somebody think he's got those traps from shagging off the FUD all year long.
Well, everyone knows the potential.
No, I'm not. I would not touch that shit with a 10-foot pole.
It's just going to be a matter of what catalyst can help push. And we've seen over the last really, especially 2 out of 3 quarters, earnings can act as a catalyst. There's no reason to write it off. It's not the catalyst, but it can be a bump that we need to really trigger kind of the real catalysts. Let's move on here. I want to take a quick look at the chain heading into earnings. I think this is more than relevant. I want to try to get a gauge of what sentiment is heading into the last couple of days prior to earnings. And this is the best way to do it. Now, volume. We know it's been a little bit low lately, especially in the chain, but today picked up a bit at 419,000. Call to put ratio about 73% calls, which is a healthy place to be, especially when you look down here at the deltas. This is where we can get a little bit more of a view of what's going on as far as in the money, at the money versus out the money. The puts, of course, we're seeing 51% delta far out of the money. Again, the delta is going to vary a little bit, so it's not an exact science here, but more than half are relatively far out of the money compared to just 38% of calls. Now, keep in mind, these are still a high percentage that's going to be out of the money, but that's natural because the further out of the money, the cheaper it gets and the more that you're going to buy, which beefs up that out of the money volume. So really, we're kind of looking here at the comparison of calls to puts, not necessarily the percentage itself. Okay. Now, last thing I just want to touch on, guys, Adam Aaron sent out a tweet today. AMC is announcing an expansion. They're in 2022. Keep in mind, this will take effect. They're going into the popcorn industry, selling it in supermarkets to go from theaters, and he said freshly popped at malls and home delivery. Is this a catalyst necessarily for the stock right now? No, probably not. But heading into 2022, after we get a couple of quarters that include this revenue in the report, I think all it can do is have a positive influence. Not to mention what's more valuable.
Okay. Let's play. Alright, this is gonna be a really boring stream for like the next 2 days. It's gonna be super boring. We're literally just gonna be grinding. But it's not even gonna be that enjoyable for me because I've already played the story. But that means I can get through it faster because I already know what's going on. Did the guy pick up the kick yet? Yeah, he did.
They fought the demons until the end, like the proud border guards they were.
These are records left by a pilgrim who was looking for the Ark a long time ago.
I've gotten a bit better, thanks to Father Armin.
So you got me on Destiny later? Trying to do that? Trying to do that dungeon?
Sick of
Yeah, we can. Just depends. I've been wanting to play this game. This game's fun as fuck. It's free, by the way. I really enjoy this game. The in-game content's really fun. The leveling's pretty boring though.
Where to? I managed to escape safely, but I'm afraid Venice didn't.
Oh, my wares! They're engulfed in flames!
Fire! Fire! Hurry! Fire! Those cursed raiders.
Over. You're traveling to the monastery? Well, just follow
I think I was having dreams that I was getting view botted or my stream was going crazy. I was like getting like 90 to like 100 people consistent. Starting to dream about getting more viewers, dude. It's rough out here. Okay. Please get the fuck off the screen, dude. Okay. Fix Mango's PC so she can stream a game.
It's
Dude!
dangerous outside.
Take care to
Her
avoid the
stream is fine. The only thing I seen was like whenever I was playing Apex. Apex was maxing out her CPU usage for whatever weird reason.
I've got a lot
The
of my
Ranger
mind.
games I paid them. Somebody raided my gym, dude. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I just kept having. I was having a dream that like my viewers was like going between like 90 viewers to like 111 viewers. I don't remember what I was doing, what I was playing, if I was talking. I just remember my viewer count just kept going up. Hello? That's a weird audio bug. No more music?
What are those monks thinking?
The demons
But
are
also she
approaching.
can't play games and stream at the same
careful.
time. She can and can't at the same time. It depends on the game, pretty much. No, now there's a weird audio bug already.
Be careful.
The demons are approaching.
I'm doing my best.
God, this just makes it sound weird. Where's the noise? Okay, dude.
What are those monks thinking?
Be careful.
Okay. It's not even worth doing these missions. You get no XP. It's just best just to fly by the fucking missions.
Thank you. Father Armin is here, helping us treat the patients.
The store. I don't like this game style, to be honest. I can never get into them. Like what? Like MMOs? Or just the way that the game looks? Because I kind of feel you. Like, I mean, I was pretty big on like the way that these kind of games look and shit. But like, watching them is completely different than when you play them. At least in my experience. Like, it feels really nice to play this game. No, just how it looks. Yeah. I want the music to come back. First person? Are you talking about like top down? Or oh, you're talking about third person. You're talking about you like first person or third person games. Well, that's always gonna be FPS games. I mean, does that mean that you like World of Warcraft?
Out of my mind.
Because this is
I've never seen a
isometric,
disease
which
like
is
this
also
before.
what it's
I don't
fixed
know what it is.
isometric, which is what uh which is what World of Warcraft is, but World of Warcraft is like unfixed
I
isometric.
don't know about them.
Kind of like third
Brother
person, you could say.
Daimon may be able to help.
Nah, in the sky, barely able to see the designs. I mean, you can play like this if you want.
Keep your
Stuff.
distance.
You like the game now, John? Hold on. You like the game now, John? Does the game look better to you, man? Do you like it now? That was the music. This sounds awkward without the music. Wow, what the fuck happened to my HP? Ah. Oh, what the fuck? Look, I have no more sound effects, dude. This is bullshit. Okay, this just feels weird. You're using the delay against me. I'm about to restart this shit, dude. I don't like that. It has no sound. Okay. Let's restart. Dude, I watched some of my old streams. Oh my god, I'm such a scuffed streamer, dude, but it's actually enjoyable. At least I find it enjoyable to watch. You broke, just say that. What the fuck? Ooh. Oh, I love this. Did it freeze? Oh no. I was old streams were not buns, dude. The old streams was legit. Oh, how does the camera look from right here? Is it better from right here? It need to work out. I'm starting to get a little. Oh my, am I balding? Oh yeah, I was just not moving. It did not pause. But I was reading this Facebook post. This bitch was trying to sell a Nintendo Switch Lite for $185. You spend $15 more and you get a brand new one. Who the fuck sells stuff for the same price? I hate people who think that their shit is gold. I'm leaving now. Alright. I hope you have a bad day at work, though.
We've suffered over.
We're too busy trying to survive the next hour to worry about the plague.
Hopefully today's the day you get fired.
We will have
You can start being on the streams more often from now on.
plague.
Fuck you after I said have a good stream, bitch boy.
You can't pass through here if you have the plague.
I hope you get banned, motherfucker. Good luck. Little streamers don't get banned, bitch. I'm only gonna get banned if I start getting more viewers and people start reporting my shit. But since I'm a little streamer, nobody reports my shit. Wait, what skin is that? Is that? Oh, it is.
What
Okay.
brings you?
What do they call it now? Pistonian? In English servers? Instead of Ashbringer? Gotcha. I didn't play, I want to play Sorceress, but obviously we're playing Korean servers. Sorceress is more of the characters I like to play. I'm just trying testing out Elementalist. She seems alright, she seems fun. Really, the one I'm in right now is Holy Knight. I like Holy Knight a lot more.
It's over.
But Sorceress is gonna be for sure the girl that I'm in. I love like mage / sorceress type characters.
It's
We've
over.
suffered.
I saw the spiders fall. The stone you mentioned. I think it's the serpent.
You can't pass through here if you have the plague.
Okay, another big thing. It does not matter if you do hard or normal difficulty, because at the end of the day, you're not level 50, so it doesn't matter. You're always gonna get better gear. It just takes longer to do hard anyways at lower levels because you're so weak. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's pointless. Oh shit, hold up. Serious. Get a winner, man. Wait, what the? I don't know that auto tracking on it. It's like homing missiles pretty much. Really ran right into that, dude. No. Oh, good combo, dude. Shit out of here. Easy. Something good that I can use. An egg! We got an egg! Anime waifu. Yeah, we'll do it.
With this serpentine jade, would you travel to Udia and look for a way to get to Morai Ruins? Would you travel to Udia and look for a way to get to Morai Ruins?
What a relief.
I heard Abbot Lewin regained consciousness.
Hello? Nothing, just playing my game and I'm streaming. Yeah, I ate Subway, but Angel hasn't ate.
What a relief.
Oh! Oh, what didn't you tell me earlier, Nanny?
Keep your distance.
Well, I'm streaming right now. Angel! Angel! Okay, give me a second, Nanny. I'm not. Angel might want to go. I don't know if she's a.
Well, let's just pick some more game.
Okay. Alright, I'll let you know. Bye, I love you. Okay. Yo, what's my audio keep getting bugged? Always just in this area. It's already buggy.
Did all the demons in the cave die?
You can't pass through here if you have the plague.
Shut your mouth, boy. Oh, it's just that area that has no.
Can't go any further.
Let's hurry and get
People who were scattered during the attack haven't reached this makeshift refuge yet.
Who are you? Why do you claim to help us? Why would an outsider aid us?
Everyone who escaped with me headed south.
Oh, this is always so boring, man. I hate having to kind of just power level through all this. Come on! You just respawned, really? Unlucky. That's ridiculous. Pro 2's coming out anytime soon. That's for me, but I still don't mind about the English.
Who are you?
Area chat talking about.
Falcon wants me to come to the north side? Is he crazy? Please, get rid of them!
I think I might want to play Scrapper. I don't know, Scrapper loot seems fun. I really want to play Sorceress whenever Sorceress comes out. I hope she comes out soon too. It's the only reason why I'm playing Elemental is.
Oh, bandits! I heard you drove the bandits away. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. I arrived early to have a look around.
Wait, I'm not seeing a lot of dead eyes
You
though.
want me to tell you about the Morai ruins?
Perhaps this old monument could whisper secrets about Enkavia to us.
Hello?
Outsider. Wait, are you the hero who drove away the bandits? Thank you so much.
Nanny's eating at Coins if you want to go eat with her. No. I'm streaming.
Is it just Nanny?
Yeah, it's just Nanny.
Aw, I don't want to eat alone.
Well, if you're hungry, go over there and get something to eat. It's cheap too. I should eat by herself.
Stop making me feel that.
I'm not making you feel any kind of way.
What can I say? So you said that if we wait until the 18th or the 17th, basically we won't have to pay for the 17th.
Yeah.
Because you said if I can put today, that's okay. Well, you said we were on a contract.
Yeah.
It'd be $80.
Yeah.
And then you said we on top of that, that you said, but if you wait until the 18th,
Yeah. Especially since you've already tried canceling it too.
Yeah.
Did you say anything about that?
But
It does matter. That means you tried canceling it a while ago. It's supposed to be something like on board.
she had to do what she had to do her job, where she has to sit there and be like, "Oh, why are you canceling it? Oh, but you know we can offer you blah blah, you know."
Morai.
What were they offering you?
I don't know,
Yeah.
and then you do that, you get to get a $10 piece of gift card. And that's when I told her.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, can I ask, like, what are your changes? Blah blah blah. What's your order?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm just calling for my boyfriend. I have no idea what's going on."
Yeah.
And then, I don't know.
Did you find what you were looking for? Did you find the monument? Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay. What?
I'm counting on you.
It sounds bad because you're not saying hi to him.
No. She can say hi to me, motherfucker. No, I can't. I lied on that. It's just not. It's not just.
Did you see what he said? He said, "I hope you get banned, motherfucker." You see that?
Well, I heard you say that.
He's rude.
She can say hi to me, motherfucker. Anyway, so I guess wait, I'll just fucking cancel it, then we'll have to pay for it. I just talk it and talk it and talk it. I just like, thanks. I found something else specifically like talking.
Yeah. You have to like read through a script of everything that they got to offer you before you try to cancel it. I mean, that's what I think. That's what we should start doing. I mean, whenever you get a new service, as soon as you get the new service, you're like, "No, I'm just not really feeling it." They're like, "We can offer you this," and yep, let's take it. Bitch, I do read chat. That's all I do. I look over at chat, but nobody types in chat, so then I get used to not reading chat. Don't you throw your fucking little pussy weapon at me?
I found a treasure map from a nomad, but it's so old. It's
Ooh, new staff, poggers. Mans wanted me to get fired. You're rude. Haha, she didn't see that.
How sad.
About what?
I was just reading his chat.
You were just reading what? Oh, it was sad.
Please help me.
Yeah, he's talking about how sad him having to go to work is.
I'm extremely jealous. I think I'm about to go take a nap.
You that tired?
I'm so sleepy. I'm sick and tired of me taking a nap.
Well, go put me up in your phone. I need the extra view. I'm getting tired of not being supported. Apparently John did call in. Look, he said Mango said call in, so I did. John's gonna get fired from his job soon. That's what's happening.
If I call in.
You tell him to call in and then you quit streaming. That's so fucked up.
He's lying. He has to go work at 2.
Oh, 8 minutes. Bitch, yes, I am in her streams. I'm just not. I'm just lurking. I don't type in chat the whole time.
That's amazing. Wonderful job. priest, you.
Fuck, treasure map!
Look, a clue. The monuments are dedicated to the Morai ruins. This is just the beginning.
Kaisar, the king of Eng.
Level up!
We were on our way to the nomad gathering when they struck.
They took.
Stop crying, bitch.
Revel should know.
You're looking for Thunder? Thunder was kidnapped.
Are you with the band? I used to be a bandit. Now I'm suspecting other people.
Fuck that quest. Yep. Mango, you gonna play this game with me?
Yeah.
No, the heavens have saved me. No, the heavens have saved me.
No, I have to walk all. Oh, come on. 4 viewers? What are you guys doing? Not following my channel? Hi, John Con, Lon, Mon, Non, On, Pon, Con, Ron, San, Ton. Remember the days when you were rapping, you speak good. There you go. If I don't get a nap today, ma'am, you don't get a nap. She can get a nap whenever the fuck she wants. John. That's what she said. You know, John, I gifted you a sub, but I see that you have a free Twitch Prime that you could have done. That's fucked up. You know that? You were always talking about how broke you are, but you have a free Twitch Prime that you could have subbed to me with.
Fake.
Nope. I didn't. Say it again, louder for the ones that are in the back.
It's not fake.
Your flirting used to be better, John.
Oh, I've heard. You've been helping my people since Saland.
Trust me, you'll find no better.
Thank you. Here comes my savior. So, what brings you to this?
Of course you did. Come on, Powerleveling.
to find the
Take
forgotten.
some money from me, actually. I don't know how much I can take of this.
You saw the monuments. The gates of Morai are opened by water? The answer must please.
Come on, I just want to get to level 50.
I remember that. Please go to the meeting area.
I would pay just to skip to level 50.
Please, listen to dear gods. Please, watch over the descent.
Easy. Alright, John, don't be leaking what we're supposed to be doing, dude. Not cool.
There is no escape. My new pet hasn't eaten in days. It's starving. Destroy them. Wait, no.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
Not meet them. Stupid worm.
Do I save him or do I not save him? Yeah, we let his ass rock. What? I should have ate that pole. Come on. Armin to the rescue!
I'm glad the damage is minimal. This must have broken their spirits too.
Oh, fuck, there's something wrong with his face. There's no way that's his face. Get good, goldfish, snack that smells back.
Ah, good. Thanks to you and the priest. The meeting ended without a hitch. I'll prepare the ritual for rain. Thank you.
I hope Thunder's spell works.
Oh yeah, but there's a lot of traffic. I bet there's gonna be so much traffic all the way until your shift ends.
It looks usable, but this is
that solar salt.
Now that you've brought this solar salt, we may begin the spell. Please, place the salt on the oven.
Damn, I guess I gotta
Morai
call
wasn't
in.
just a myth after all.
Morai? Morai! The old forgotten city of our people.
The Morai ruins have. This is what the monument meant.
Morai wasn't.
Call it.
Call it!
Call it.
Bet you won't, pussy. Easy. Skip, 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 skip. Don't need matchmaking. You right, I won't. Now that's why you're a beta male.
Light of Regulus, Lord of all gods. Help us see the path. Hurry and search the ruins.
What was that speed boost? You knew that was gonna happen.
That was a close one. We better watch our step. This glyph seems to respond to light.
Read the words written on the road.
Only the light.
Easy, let's go. Shut the fuck up, bitch boy. Huh? Yeah, he was a work. He's calling me the bitch. $10 you get fired today.
He said one more electron or million was still fired.
Yep, and it looks like he's getting fired. Yeah, that's why I hope they fire your bitch ass. Ah, what the fuck? Who? What? How about? What? Fuck, check you right here. Come on. There's gonna be like one enemy over here that I did not kill, dude. Come on. Oops. Had a minute to spare, I'm good. You do not have a minute to spare, bro. You're 10 minutes late. What do you mean? Oh, like after you take 10? What, you had 1 minute to spare to being 10 minutes late? Hello? Am I soft locked? Oh my god, look at it. One enemy, dude. That's so dumb. Where's Echo? Oh shit.
It's too long and then I'll
Yep.
We went on the air vent earlier.
Because it's blowing out hot.
What the fuck?
He's so pissed. Ah, we're good. So where's my cash? Bitch, where's my cash? You work at McDonald's, you doing a whole shift, you can afford something, bro. Greedy motherfucker. But even WoW Classic is more rewarding and it was made in the 2000s. Damn. People in chat seem like they're really not enjoying the game. Or not my chat, but like roll chat. Alright, have a good stream. See you, John. Glad you didn't get fired, dude. Okay, these things actually do a lot of damage. Oh, I was about to do a cutscene. Damn it, fuck me. Yo, people were saying Amazon paid its streamers a lot of money to like this game. I've not seen a single big streamer play this game at all. Easy, man, easy. Damn, my legs are hurting. Okay. I hate the way that they do that. I just want to be able to skip, dude, skip. What are people enjoying? Probably gonna play Conan coming out Apex soon. I wanna play the new Ultimate coming out. Finally getting to the end. Oh my god, leveling's so boring. Is it this guy already? No way. We're already at Thanatos? Easy, then we grab the plate, then we shot it right into his asshole, and then he's good. Wait, do we not have to do that on here? Can I just shine the plate into his asshole? Oh, there's the plate. Can't grab it yet. Oh, I see his health up here now.
Now is the time.
Alright. Log! Now we're gonna kill him with them.
What do you hope to accomplish? Only death awaits you here. Mine is mine.
I think it's going so. No way, that was so fast. Again? Really? Three, two, one, GG. Okay. We're gonna play Apex. We're playing Apex! Apex! It's our game, why? What the fuck? Try again. Uh. Do you wanna be my girlfriend? Get with me, my friend. Okay, give me a second. What the fuck happened to it? Oh, it's right here. Can't bring it to another screen. Okay, give me a second. Just to make sure. Okay. Alright, now let's change it. Let's change it back. Now let me change my stream. My stream. My stream. Okay, stop. You know what? He's right. They did pay that motherfucker. Amazon paid Co-Carnage. I seen that. Because he has drops enabled. That shit's not enabled for any other streamer.
We're in this together.
That's true.
These legs weren't made for walking.
I'm only headed one way, and that's up, baby.
Introducing your champion.
Motherfuckers.
I'm the jump
New
master,
map.
which should go without saying. I love this part.
Oh, sorry guys. Don't give it to me. We're going straight down. Do we have a vault? Oh, and a lifeline. I thought they want to play Wraith. What the fuck? Wait, why is there no loot? How come every time I fucking land, I never have a gun? With enemy. What the fuck is that?
Wow, first blood.
Imagine crashing and burning on takeoff.
Contact.
Thermite grenade. Frag out. Charging up my shields.
Faster that sugar.
Shit, my arm's kinda hurting. I'm like losing blood flow here.
shields. Come on, come on.
Shield battery, here.
Reloading. I got some bad guys here.
I'm getting shot at. Just give him my shield.
Fire! I'm down.
Got one. Enemy down.
Right here.
Up and down.
Under fire.
Yeah, why my arm hurting? No way we lose this. No. No.
Change is inevitable, my friend.
How do we lose? Play 2 matches in any mode, play 2 matches with Revenant. Okay, let's play Revenant. Oh, let's get the Revenant skin though. Skinwalker. Okay, I need a water. I'll be back.
DJ.
Apex Legends.
The Legends of Apex. I bet you they had a big long discussion of whether or not to call it Apex Legends or the Legends of Apex.
Oh shit.
But then I guess the play on words would be so much better for Apex Legends. You're the Apex Predator or you're the Apex Legend? Because the Legends of Apex sound like League of Legends and fucking...
It's too close.
Yeah, it's
similar.
It's not what you've been copying. And then all the characters, the similar characters and shit too. Yep. Right, John? My man.
Alright.
I'm Jumpmaster. Follow me or
John,
stay out of my way.
helping a brother out. I mean,
I'm sorry guys, I'm fucking terrible.
Oh.
Oh, this guy. Loud talker, eh?
Fix that.
Thank you.
This is awesome. I'm the Jumpmaster.
Alright, let's look.
Yeah,
We can go somewhere south.
Yeah, eh?
There's one squad that went south actually.
They're all gonna go blue, I
north is
think.
good too.
Yeah, I think we're going northwest. Northwest, fellas. Yeah, we're gonna.
A lot of guys
Everybody
going
If you have to breathe. I'm flying. Something good this way.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good spot.
They're all going in that jungle, you know? You're going past.
You're gonna wait. You're going right. Or
Yeah,
left of
I'm
it?
gonna go right of this. Yeah, I'm gonna go right. We're gonna hit that tower.
Okay. You can take us there?
Explore this
Yeah.
way.
We're gonna speed up one more time.
They're coming to us. Smell that. First blood.
Moving that way.
There you go. You guys get your shit here. Yeah.
Oh shit, I gotta move my phone.
That was a good jump.
Not the best one. Not the best, though. I want to be the best.
Attention. There is a new kill leader.
A new kill leader. We have our target.
Oh, so good.
I just thought of this. So the only gun that they've added so far that I really like that's been brand new, I think it's been the car, because all the other guns, like the Devotion, were already in game. And out of all the new guns, well, maybe the Volt too. Okay, I shouldn't say that. Volt's pretty good too. But
The alternator apparently has no recoil anymore.
care package weapon right now. Shit's fucking. Shit's bomb. That bomb with chicken, huh?
There's nothing
No
really
loot down here?
huh?
No.
Yeah, I don't want to do no loot.
I think they're gonna have to try and do something with the loot pool because it's kind of like you said.
Skewy?
The white shield. The white shield is kind of fucking ridiculous enough.
Yeah, why do we have that?
Like, even if I fucking get bonded, I still get a white shield. And you're like, yeah, but nah. Well, we gotta go.
Okay, where should we go?
Let's head towards. Yeah, we'll go that way. I'll meet you there. There's a couple bins.
I'm gonna
here.
shoot these prowlers.
Alright, just be careful because there's
This is not like I have like 4 people in my lobby right now.
They'd be coming at that, you know.
It's okay.
We're close to the ring. We have 1 minute.
I forgot, yo. Fucking OG over here.
What that purple?
The ring is in close proximity. Less than 1 minute.
How big of a blunt do you think Snoop Dogg was smoking when he was apologizing to Eminem?
20 seconds to get inside that ring.
Like, and you know, Dre was like, yo, come on, do it. And it's like, alright, I'll do it, but you know, I'm going fatty before I talk to this film, bitch.
Get shit on me.
Take it easy, thanks.
My bad.
I probably over with you, that's why.
Hey, what do I need?
We're all outside the ring. Recharging shields.
What do I need? I need 7 more damage.
Alright, yeah, now.
Come.
Hey, I forgot we're in bronze, so we can just hot
Yeah,
down.
this is just whatever.
Cost us nothing anyway.
Care package being delivered.
Incoming care package. I love loot.
I love loot.
If you guys see any prowlers or anything I can damage, let me know.
No.
Is my voice loud? Is like my mic?
Not really.
Okay.
Why don't you shoot the, see if you shoot the flyer, see if that makes any difference to the flyer. Cause I saw a flyer right there.
Fuck. Glitched. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I glitched out. Okay, I'm
What
back.
happened? Why don't you shoot a flyer? Although your mic is fucking up.
Here we go.
Kind of talk.
Here we go. I'm back. I'm back. Does that give you damage?
I don't know if I was asking. I was wondering if maybe you did shoot it, if it did cost you damage.
Yeah, it gives you damage towards your next shield if you shoot prowlers and the flyers.
Okay, cool.
Did it?
Yeah, I just killed 2 and then I'm already at purple right now.
Nice.
Massive shotgun here. Shotgun bolt here. Level 3.
Hilarious.
I've got an Evo shield here. It's cool. Level 2.
It's cool.
I can make use of that.
Extended light mag here. Extended heavy mag here. Level 3.
Oh, the vid.
Got that vid?
Acceptable selection.
That vid 19, yo? Yo, I got
That
that vid
vid.
21, bro. Oh,
You say
that's
thank
what
you
it
in
is
a
now.
strange way, but I
that's
still
gonna be that shit,
understand.
yo.
Wait, they're vehicles now? The fuck is this?
That's tripping out.
Sorry.
Or I run you over. I need some space.
That's not a car, bro.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it's hasn't been touched yet.
Sniper stock here. Level 3.
Optics here.
You can see turbocharger. Oh no, turbocharger in the craft.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 2 squads on me, but
What is that? Nobody touched this place, but I hear noise.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I haven't touched it, huh?
Hey. At the mall.
See, why you gonna be like that? Goddamn flatline?
Half the squads are already dead.
You wanna grab the survey beacon?
Yeah, you smarter than me, I don't do that shit, man. The map is
Yo, is it glitching for you too, or just me? Just me, huh?
Shotgun bolt here. Extended heavy magazine here. Level 3. Scanning for the next ring. Check your minigun. Extended light magazine here.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a long zip line.
They're sending a replicator down to us. So what if I had a death wish and can't drive? Get in the car.
Where are these spiders?
There's a 301 here.
It's okay, I got flatline and Devo. Yo, come. All the way. Yeah,
I'm
come
coming.
on.
Oh, I thought that was your zip line.
No, mine's better than that one, no?
Couldn't find it.
Oh shit, they get some pogger ass loot, dude. Is there more?
What the hell? Oh, okay. Where you going now? Holy.
What?
Is this yours?
What? Dude, how many times am I gonna miss?
Oh, wow.
Oh, I'm getting shot. Getting shot.
Shit, I'm coming. Any way you can ping it? I have no idea. Oh, baby.
Recharging shields.
Wow. They focus fire the shit out of me.
Just us left.
Yeah, wait for me, wait for me.
Firing. Reloading.
Oh, I couldn't get that. You get a fucking full squad.
What? Man, fuck me, bro. That's why I hate BRs. Yes. That's all I wanted. Now I can buy Ash. Okay, that's sick. Okay. Let's see how she is in arenas.
Been putting the bomb in bombastic.
Do not falter.
2681.
The weak will be excised.
Ahead, we talk of victory and slaughter.
Holy shit, 200 for that.
Vi vill slattra and vi vill vinna. Mot Halus. Let's explore this way.
She runs fast. She feels good.
Shields are depleted. Recharging.
Okay, her Q actually is pretty cool. What the fuck was that? Okay, let's run this. What's her passive? Actually, her passive is completely useless on arenas. Are they not gonna tweak that at all? They're just gonna let her have a completely useless passive? Her Q is really good on arenas, but her passive is absolutely useless. Which I find really weird that they're just gonna allow. Or maybe that's like the balancer. Houston mission.
Captured some materials. Taking fire. Reloading. Recharging shields. Enemy down. Reloading. Another taken.
Oh, that was just nasty. That was gross. Not even fair. Okay, let's see how her ult works here.
Materials. Enemy spotted. I am taking fire. Recharging my shields.
Care package. Could turn the tide for you. Could turn the tide for them.
There you saw that. Recharging my shields.
Oh my god, this champ is just nuts. What's your remote? Okay. Okay, let's try and play some VR, man. I just want the wingman. Give me the wingman. Maybe first.
Something's whispering.
Y'all fought!
The All-Father will gift us today.
Time to put some lead down range.
This is your champion.
Ach, dinna fash yourself. Cause I'm the best. Got you on my side.
This might be a good place to land. Prepare for battle.
Really, you have a console player? Man, I fucking hate when we get a console player.
Enemy killed.
Embrace that kill.
Taking a knee. Patching up.
First, bless me with sight.
Round 1. Beginning ring countdown.
We're outside the
Your
ring.
time is not over
Get ready
yet.
for a world of hurt.
I have no gun, no nothing. I hate dropping in VR as well. Man, I just have nothing.
Taking a moment to heal.
No loot. No gun.
I am down, but contact.
Firing. Tango down.
Our squad mate was weak. Now it's only us.
Eating lead. Spotted. Double timing it. Taking a knee. Patching up. They got me. I'm down.
Come on, heal, heal, heal. Recharging shields. Heal, heal, heal. New kill leader appointed.
Fucking, I can't stand it. I gotta play arenas, dude. That game mode is just so bad. Just shit lobbies every time.
And hyper commercialization, hyper individualism, where have people that instead of identifying as maybe in the past they might have said, well, I'm an American, but I'm also we were just talking about backstage, a Bostonian, or a New Yorker, or I'm originally from the Philly area, so like you're an Eagles fan, right? And it just is what it is. And of course I'm saying that in Dallas, and my dad said
that's brave.
My dad of course said he would give me $20 if I said that while I was in Dallas, so Dad, you owe me. But right, we had these sort of identities, or maybe a religious identity, you're Catholic and all this, but somewhere along the line we started adding identities, and we added more and more and more and more, and now it seems like those new identities, what shows do you watch? Are you a Marvel fan? Are you a Disney fan? Are you this? Are you that? What political team are you on? Well, I'm this, I'm that. And so you then start to identify as this label that you put yourself on. And it used to be that some of those identities were at least rooted under the sort of like umbrella identity of being an American, being an American citizen, what that meant. But it somewhere along the line, probably since the 90s, I feel like it's actually changed, and we're taking the newer identities and sort of forgetting about the older stuff.
Runway's green as grass, and we are ready for takeoff in 10.
Yeah, to double up on what he's saying, the phenomenon that you're referring to is actually called neo-medievalism. And it was like first written about in a book, or I first heard about it in a book called The Modern Mercenary. And it was talking about the impact of this on the battlefield, because we're relying more and more on contractors. And if you guys know your medieval history, like you would, as a member of society, you would swear allegiance to a lord, a king, and you would also have a faith. And it's like, what happens when your lord is in conflict with your king, or in conflict with your faith? This would produce problems and contradictions that can rip societies apart. And we're seeing that not only overseas with our contractors, where we have people who are loyal to companies, their own nation state, their own faith, but we're also seeing that in the United States. Like all this like over-identifying and identifying with things that are in conflict with one another is bound to create these negative consequences. Because again, if you're identifying as something that is in conflict with like an American vision, or in conflict with somebody else, or you have multiple contradicting identities, what happens when those conflicts are brought to the forefront? And I think that's what we're seeing in our society right now.
If I could, I would also just like to add too, I think just as people, as humans, we are tribalistic, right? Like if we look at our ancestors, we were all tribal. And so we have to have this common purpose, this common sense of identity, this common goal. And I think I would agree that we've completely lost sight of what that goal is. And I just think even if you look at in society, even if you look at a smaller subset of people, you look at a family. What happens to a family, a husband and a wife and children who disagree on what their common principles are, who disagree on what their common goals are? Does that family stay together? Absolutely not. And so I think that when you're looking at, how America has really shifted, and we've got these new ideas now, which isn't a surprise because of the indoctrination that's happening in all of these institutions that are teaching our children, teaching these people who are exiting college. When you're looking at that, it's no surprise that we've lost our sense of identity, but certainly if you are on the train that America needs to come back together, which I recognize there are two thought processes here, and one of them is we just need a national divorce because we're too far gone, and one of them is we need to come back together, and this is how we're going to have to do it.
How come my queue canceled right there?
The team
Are you able
of
to
coming
shoot
back
my
together in
queue?
America, there is absolutely no way we can do it with no sense of common purpose.
I would say that all of us suffer from a really bad bout of recentism. I think it's easy to feel that we have, right now in this moment in history, an incredibly unique fracture in what we would consider an American identity. But I would say that, one, there have been far worse periods of history in the United States. We literally went to war with ourselves over a fractured identity. But even more importantly, I'd say, even in the founding principles of this country, with the Federalist Papers trying to bring together the 13th colonies, we've always kind of had this idea of, yeah, we're Americans, but we're not all just Americans. You've got people that live in different areas. You've got a divide between religious people of different factions. You've got divides between city dwellers and urban dwellers. You've got Midwesterners. You've got NFL fans. There's all these different ways that we've historically always kind of divided us. We've had slaves. We've had not slaves. We've had, Irish and Italian immigrants. We've had so many different groups of come into the United States and ultimately, hopefully, merge together. Now, I think we kind of disagree on what it means to merge. We use the phrase melting pot. We have a lot of different groups here. In some ways, we seem to be at strife with one another. But I think that part of the strength of the United States is we've always been, to some extent, pretty fractured. And I think that it's easy to feel, because of all of the unique problems we have lately, especially with social media, that we're in some unique point in history where our identity is fractured. And aside from the Civil War, aside from internment camps in World War II, aside from crazy college kids that were indoctrinated in the 60s protesting against things like the Vietnam War and civil rights, I think that we've always had a healthy amount of conflict in the U.S. identity. I think that we can do things to bring it together, but I think it's important to recognize that it's not unique that we feel fractured today.
Do you think, though, that it's the level of contempt that we have for one another, for people who disagree with us, is unique, that we're at a pretty high point of contempt? Because it's one thing to say, we're fractured, we have different cultures or different opinions and different beliefs. But I think it's another thing to say we also view people with different opinions as morally in the wrong, and we have contempt for them. Is that something that's new, do you think?
I don't think so. I think that historically, there have been huge conflicts between different groups of people in the United States, where we've seen, Irish and Italian immigrants were like enemies of the U.S. or couldn't find employment in places. Union versus non-union workers, especially post-civil rights era, was a huge divide in terms of how, should unions be regulating themselves or should the federal government do it, a la the Civil Rights Act. I think we've always had some level of contempt for each other. I think that what's unique today in U.S. history is the amplification exists in a way that it never did before, which I could maybe say to some extent makes it a little unique. Because, a long time ago, if I hated Joe Schmo in my neighborhood, I hated Joe Schmo in my neighborhood. Maybe everybody in my neighborhood knew. If it was really bad, maybe my church knew. If it was really bad, maybe everybody in the union knew. But nowadays, the entire world can know in a heartbeat if I don't like a particular guy, and uniquely, the entire world can come down on that guy. Cancel culture didn't exist when news only spread as far as your newspaper traveled.
But I would also argue that that's why it is more fractured than in previous times, because, as you said, the amplification of one voice can affect so many different people that they didn't even realize that they could affect.
I'm actually not going to disagree with him on that. We literally had a mini civil war over the state of Kansas. I think that we've had worse times, and a lot of this national divorce talk is doom and gloom. And I called it subversive nonsense on Twitter, and people got mad at me for it. But we've had divisions that are deep in this country that have led to conflict in this country. I think the thing that's different now is the way that we view the federal government. Right now, we believe that when you elect the president, it's that person's job to impose their will on the rest of the country. Like before, we had more checks and balances, so you could have states that were kind of going in their own direction because you had specific roles for the federal government and specific roles for the states. So I don't think it's as bad as it's ever been. I think that is a little bit of catastrophizing for sure, but I think the way we view national politics is worse.
I think also to piggyback on the back of that real quick too, I think that a lot of it becomes a numbers game with the amplification as well. Let's say, for instance, I could show you every single day a new story of a horrific black on white hate crime or white on black hate crime. If I could show you one story every single day, would that even necessarily be a bad thing? In a nation of 330 million people, you're never going to have zero problems. You're never going to have zero crime. There's something called the Chinese bank robber fallacy, where I could theoretically show you 1,000 new Chinese bank robberies happening every single day, assuming that we're looking at all the Chinese people across the world, and it still wouldn't necessarily make it a trend or a bad thing. It's just when you have so many numbers of people, you're bound to be able to pick and choose the types of stories you want to tell, which can lead people into thinking that things are so much worse than they actually are.
So the biggest division today isn't necessarily even like political in the sense of conservative, liberal, or Republican, Democrat. The biggest thing is that we're living now in the United States through an era of regime politics. And there is, or there has been, really since probably 2015, 2014, a level of populist sentiment on both the right and the left that has, and I think rightly, targeted this regime of, and it's tied to the federal government, it's tied to the president, it's also tied to Congress, it's tied to many institutions throughout the government, or that work in hand with the government. The rise of essentially this administrative state that, and it was goes back to Wilsonian doctrine. This idea that universities and the academy would essentially borrow some of the sovereignty from our government and then be used to control, the decisions of the government itself, even though they're, of course, not elected officials. This was part of the German idea that the regime should exist separate from elected government, and that science and enlightenment and reason should be separated from the muddy, grubby world of politics. And so that regime has become more and more powerful. It has also been amplified by many of these factors, but because so many people have decided that it is not serving the people well, they're turning to candidates then, and again, this is both on the right and the left, that are actually in opposition to that regime. If you look at what happened in 2016, and then after that, you can see that the regime feels very threatened. This is one of the reasons that even though we had the social media amplification system, which arguably is still in place, they're doing everything they can to put these shackles and hammer down on anybody that really speaks out across these narratives when it comes to this, because the regime has the line of the regime, the inner party sets the truth, and that anything that stands in opposition to this must be rooted out. And any people, if they become rooted out because of this, must also be taken down. This, of course, leads to the arrest of Julian Assange. It leads to the current investigation on James O'Keefe. It leads to the demonization of Tulsi Gabbard when she ran for president. Many of these other voices out there, and the entire anti-war movement, by the way, any of these voices, Chelsea Manning, great example, any of these voices, right, that come out that say, I don't like what the regime is doing, are then destroyed, and they must thusly be destroyed because we're living through that era. So I don't necessarily think that it's all left-right. I mean, there certainly is a lot of that, but there's also a lot of this sort of up-down division that we're seeing as well.
So I want to get back to this question just quickly about the level of contempt that we feel for one another as a result of all this. I was reading a recent Brown and Stanford University study that reported that effective polarization, meaning the amount of negativity that a citizen feels towards political parties other than their own, has increased dramatically in the United States in the past 40 years. And I agree with you. I don't think that it's necessarily organically a political kind of division. I think that's being manufactured. But in the past 40 years, people are now reporting more contempt, more negativity towards people in the other parties. So if you look at people in 1960, for example, 4% of Democrats and 4% of Republicans said they would be unhappy if their child chose to marry someone of the opposite political party. By 2019, that figure was 45% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans said they would be unhappy if their child married outside of their political party. What are the factors specifically, if there are any factors like social media that are making this a uniquely contemptuous time for people with disagreements? What are those factors? Could we agree on what some of those are?
Well, I would say that we've known for a long time. I mean, if you guys read The Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt's book, that it's Haidt, but I like to call him Hate because that's how it's spelled. If you read his book, that the left has hated the right for a long time in this nation. And one of the unique things, and they've done this through surveys where the left literally can't understand, the further left you are, the worse you are at guessing the values of right-wing people. But one of the things that's happened that's become interesting is now we have the right hating them back. It used to be a situation where the left thought you were evil if you were on the right wing, and people on the right just thought you were wrong or stupid, and they would try to convince you. But now we're seeing this almost, it's taken decades. We're seeing the right push back, and I don't know if that's due to social media. I don't know if it's due to the fact that, for decades these people are telling you that they hate you, and you can only go for so long saying, oh, they're just ignorant, and now people are like, all right, I hate you back. But I think the right's polarization, or they're more vitriol for the left, that 35% number is, it's still lower, but I think that's relatively new.
I think as well, a lot of this, to kind of use my theory of the regime on this is fomented, right? This is fomented on both sides to keep them pitted against each other, to really sort of occlude what is actually happening in this country right now. So you'll see, many times we've seen federal agencies or agents of national security teams go in and then implant informants in things like Black Lives Matter or other left-wing groups. You're starting to see it now in this Boogaloo movement, which it seems like it was almost completely created by the federal government, as well as people that are more associated with these militia groups, these Three Percenters, Oath Keepers, and various other groups that are associated with things that happened throughout 2020 and early 2021. And so this type of anger and polarization is fostered by the regime because they are seeking to push what's essentially known as a color revolution. Now, color revolution is something that, had you been in Eastern Europe, or if you had been following the events of the Arab Spring, you would see how different regimes or pockets of regimes or groupings of regimes are using these tactics to be able to achieve geopolitical primacy. You're seeing that. We saw it in Ukraine. You saw it across the Arab Spring. You've seen it. Really, pick a country in Eastern Europe. It's happened there probably a few times. The only difference is these types of forces aren't really used in the West. And so through those instances, any one of these polarizations, and then specifically acts of violence, has to be filtered through the lens of the regime narrative. So whether it's the events of January 6th, whether it's the events of Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, George Floyd, whatever it is, it's filtered through that narrative so that the regime can achieve its ends.
I feel like the regime has always done, if we look at it from the regime lens, I feel like that's an unsatisfactory explanation, because the government has always done weird stuff. Whether we're talking Tuskegee with the experiments on black people and syphilis, whether we're talking the FBI informants that were embedded into people like the Black Panthers in the civil rights era, I think the government's always been up to kind of funny business, whether we're talking about MK Ultra. There's all sorts of different projects that the government has done, arguably some that have been worse in the past than what exists today. I feel like, for a slightly less conspiratorial view rather than regime versus the people, I think that something that happens, it's kind of in line, I guess obviously I favor my paradigm, with the amplification of stuff, is something that's happened is we have become hyper-nationalized in our political landscape, and we're kind of sold this illusion that there is a unifying Democratic Party and a unifying Republican Party, and that is absolutely not true. A Democrat that exists in West Virginia has absolutely nothing in common with a Democrat generally that exists in, like, California. And we have this issue where and it doesn't surprise me that people might view each other as worse, but that's because if I were to ask, if I were to ask a Republican in any of the Bible Belt, what do you think of when I say, like, Democrat? You're not actually thinking of another Democrat that might exist in your city or on your state legislature or your city council or whatever. You're thinking of AOC. You're thinking of the Justice Dems, you're thinking of President Biden, you're thinking of Obama. And then much the same if I ask a Democrat, like, oh, well, who are you thinking about? You know, and they're thinking like, you know, Jim Jordan, or they're thinking Donald Trump, or they're thinking of, you know, all of these national level Republicans. I think that when we kind of lose, I think that when we look at our unique political landscapes that exist on a local level, you're going to find a lot of overlap in values. If you go to a particular city election, it's pretty rare that you're going to have an ultra left-leaning socialist running against like a far-right Trump supporter. Usually there's going to be a lot of shared values in between the two of these people, because that's typically how local politics works. But I think when we become so nationalized in all of these conversations, we kind of forget, like, you know, not to call anybody out, but like, who is on your state legislature, or who is your mayor, or who is your governor? Sometimes people don't even know, you know? But we sure can name the last thing that AOC tweeted, or the last fight that Ben Shapiro got in with some congressperson, because the national level politics is all we see. And when that is what you see, I think because we see the most extreme of that, you tend to think that the people of the opposite political party living near you embody the values of the most extreme figures you see from halfway across the country on Twitter or television.
I kind of want to add to something, Sean, that you said, which was, I know you said, you know, finally the right has said, I hate you back. And I do just, maybe it's semantics to some people, but to me, I would just like to, in my opinion, tweak that a little bit, which is, I think that you can only poke the bear for so long until the bear finally says, I'm done. Right, so
oh my God, the carrying, dude, man, come on.
It's not been so much that
I don't want to lose.
You hate us and we hate you back, but it's just we have been disrespected for so long. We have been told that we are white supremacists, that we are this, that we are that we are transphobic, that we are homophobic, all of the phobics for so long that you can only live like that for so long before you turn back and say, you know what, I'm kind of done. I just don't really care to live like this anymore. And I do think that it is an important distinction, because in my experience, I haven't seen that hatred coming from the right, but more so just, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm done with the energy. I just don't want to play the game anymore.
Oh, for sure. And I do think a big driving factor is the emphasis on racial politics. Obviously, race is very divisive, and no matter what most people say about how they don't mind being called racist at this point, it's something that bothers you because that's one of the worst things to call somebody. It's close. The closest thing to it is calling somebody a pedophile. Like, that's how serious the allegation is. So ever since we've the left has really, and you could track their mentions of white supremacy on Google Trends, ever since they've ratcheted up that rhetoric, we've seen the response from the Republicans, because they were always nasty. They always hated George W. Bush. They would call him an idiot. They hated Sarah Palin and all that. But we're like, whatever, that's politics. We understand. We don't like Hillary Clinton because she kills people. We get it. But once everybody became deplorable white supremacists and all that, and you just see this everywhere, and it's not the full left, progressives make up 7% of the population, and these are the people most likely to be ratcheting it up, but people just fall in line and they comply with that loud 7%. And I think that's led to the right seeing the left as that and realizing that even if I know intellectually you don't hate me on the left, you're willing to stand idle while my name gets dragged through the mud, or my family's members' names gets dragged through the mud, because you're not willing to call it out because we've glorified the allegations of racism in this country. So I do think that has led, that is the poking of the bear, and that's where we went too far, or they went too far.
We would also probably be remiss, or I would probably be remiss, if we didn't bring up the one area of polarization that's even larger than political right now. And that has to do with the way that society is becoming polarized on the issue of COVID-19, specifically on vaccination status versus unvaccination status.
Oh,
and
my
you've got
goodness.
people now within the federal regime that are coming out and saying that if you are unvaccinated, you are the problem, you are scapegoated. Jacinda, the prime minister from New Zealand, was asked about this, and they said, are you creating a two-tier society where there is one rung of citizens that has less rights, right? They are second-class citizens with less rights than the people who have become vaccinated. She said, yes. Yes, we are. We positively are doing this. And so whether or not your vaccination status is this or that, whatever, listen to your doctor, do your thing. But I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think any of us should sit here and look at a country that becomes so incredibly polarized, where we take a group of people, it is a smaller group of people, by the way, and then blame all the ills of society on them. This has been done throughout history when regimes become decrepit, when they feel threatened, and they come up with these scapegoat targets, and it never ends well. It always ends horribly.
I think there's something else to that, Jack. And actually, we talked about it on my show yesterday, which was it was a comment
me,
that
I didn't
just
know we were
got,
running
and
to the
I hear
opposite
this
side of the
all
map,
time
dude.
in regards to COVID-19, which is
Fucking come
the
on.
idea that someone had said, well, true patriots care more about public health than they do about individual freedom. And I hear that so often, is that people are like, you are not patriotic if you don't care about the common good. If you care about the common good, you will do this for your neighbor. You will wear the mask. You will get vaccinated. You will do all these things. And I really do hear that so often, that there are these two lines of thought that, like, well, you're not patriotic unless you put the greater good first. Even though when you look back at the collectivist mentality, that's never been what America has stood for. That's never been what America was founded on. And yet somehow here we are finding ourselves with these people who have been conditioned to view their freedoms as selfish. And I think it's a really dangerous time.
I think we've absolutely been collectivists in the past. We literally had a draft where we forced young men who were 18 years old to go overseas and fight to the death in wars. I would say that we had an office of censorship around World War II, where we were literally disallowing people casting baseball games to talk about the weather because we didn't want, foreign enemies to have any sort of information coming into the United States. I think that there's always been like a healthy balance between, these are our private liberties, but
so
as
bad,
our children with, more
Just
freedoms,
stick
come
around
more
me.
responsibilities. You want to drive, that's fine. You can't drink and drive. If you want to, stay out late, that's fine, but you've got to call and check in. Like, it's always been historically, whether we're talking to our children or our fellow countrymen, that with additional freedoms is always necessarily going to come additional responsibilities, because you just can't have an anarchist society with everybody running around doing as they will and saying, we have freedom, because freedom is really only as good as the people around you ensure it is, Like, you can have an ultimately free society that, at the end of the day, you don't have the ability to do anything inside. So whether that's a pandemic and you're immunocompromised and now you can't go anywhere because nobody wants to do anything to, take care of themselves or take care of you to make sure that you don't get sick, or, whether that's, driving on the road and other people are drunk driving because we decide, well, they can drunk drive, but if they get in an accident, that's where we're going to punish them. I think that we always accept some level of limits on our freedom. If we want to say also that there's like a two-tier system being created between the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated, I mean, I guess we can say that, but that system was created a long time ago. We've had that for a long time. In order to go to public schools, and most
That's
private
not
schools,
true. That's completely not true.
Wait, do you require vaccinations to attend most schools?
Did they check a vaccination status when we got into this theater? When you went to a supermarket? When you went to...
I would argue going to school is more important than going to the theater. Or
Most states have exemptions.
This is Mott and Bailey, right? We're not talking about those vaccines. We're talking about this vaccine.
And I'm just saying, if you to utter the phrase, we're creating a two-tier system between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, that's already existing.
There's a crucial distinction.
It's actually happening.
Absolutely. You cannot go to public schools and most private schools unless you are vaccinated, and you have to show a record of that.
I'd like to just correct, but on top of that, most states in this country offer a wide variety of exemptions for parents to fill out. I know because I do them. It's very easy. I go to my state's registrar, the Department of Health. I go fill out my information. They send me a form. I go get it notarized saying I don't want my children to be vaccinated for whatever reason I so choose, my personal conscience. I believe that it's New York and California who are the only ones who have done away with everything except medical, but medical still remains. So the idea that I can't send my kids to public school or private school unless they're vaccinated is absolutely untrue. I know because I do it.
There's an exemption process, though. My understanding for the COVID-19 vaccine as well, though. Yes, you're allowed to get tested, and you can show that you've been tested.
Many employers are not accepting that exemption.
No.
But I have a question. Do you believe, Stephen, that you don't believe that there's an attempt to use vaccine status to divide us in this country? You don't think that's happening?
I think at this point you could literally tell people to stop shitting in the streets, and Republicans will pull down their pants and run up and down and do it. I think that people are looking for divisions in any possible place you can find it. I guess as an American citizen, I think that we have access to a wonderful society, but there's going to be some buy-in to that society. Whether it triggers people or not, like paying taxes is part of your obligation to society. Being a good neighbor is part of your obligation to society. Taking the bare minimum steps to ensure that you're not transmitting a deadly disease over and over and over again to other people is like the bare minimum step you can take in society. I think it's a fair.
What does being a good neighbor mean, though? That means different things to different people, right? Like when you're saying,
that's what we vote on.
But when you're saying it's my responsibility, public health health is my responsibility. It is not my responsibility that we have an obesity crisis in this nation. I have not forced people to go and make themselves.
Obesity is not contagious.
But it makes people more prone to getting COVID.
That's
which
fine,
means
but
that
obesity
which
itself
so
is
if
not
you
contagious.
but if you have made yourself have comorbidities to something that is going around, how is that my responsibility?
I mean, we can talk about reasonable steps you can take to prevent one from getting sick. I don't know if I would say that like every single
But that
person
wasn't
needs
your
to
argument.
live.
Right,
people don't take care of their own
we can
bodies.
I don't think we can say every single person has to live an optimally healthy life, otherwise it's your
Right,
responsibility.
but that wasn't
when it
your
comes to something like
argument.
a
Your argument was
vaccine, when it comes to something like a
public
vaccine.
By
this
the
is a
way, can you
2-second
guys
thing.
see
go
why
into
I
the
brought
grocery
up
store, you get it, you're done.
vaccines? Because like this was kind of, we were kind of like just chilling up here, and then I was like, let's talk about something.
He wanted to make
spicy,
it
you know?
interesting.
But,
Actually,
like,
this I think goes
it's
to
like,
your
we are
point
going to
because
now
suddenly
speak of
it's
the
very
vaccine. We are going to have a lively argument and discussion for your viewing pleasure.
suddenly it's very contentious.
Yeah,
okay?
I do have a point about that because you brought up the in order to go to public schools, and true, we require most kids. There are exceptions to get vaccinated for public schools, but what do we require them to get vaccinated for? Diseases that are either more contagious than COVID and diseases that are more deadly for children than COVID. Like, we don't require flu shots every year for kids to go to public schools, and COVID for kids in that age is about as dangerous as the flu.
Nor
like,
did
if
we
you want to
require
compare this to a
masks.
smallpox vaccine, smallpox's fatality rate was 30%. It was a worldwide pandemic, like, or a worldwide plague on humanity. These two things are not comparable. So
I agree that we don't require flu shots, but if the flu was killing, 500,000 people in
the
a
flu
year,
kills more children than
Hold on. The flu fatality rates are nowhere near the SARS-CoV-2.
He's talking about for
We're talking about children
Yeah,
because you brought up
but we're not.
schools.
But you don't get vaccinated just for children. I don't know why conservatives are so short-sighted when it comes to public health. You don't get shot just for the children. You get shot to protect their families, to protect their teachers, to protect other people in society. This is how vaccinations work. Vaccinations are not an individual protection measure. It is a societal epidemiological health prescription.
Just to
That's
get
how
us
they
back
work.
on subject for a
So
second.
vaccinate people.
I'm curious, because we all seem to be, at least I thought we were in agreement on several things until we got to this very divisive issue of
Psych.
vaccines. But I'm just curious, do you believe that there's a concerted effort in this country to divide the populace along issues like race, for example, using race, for example, to divide us, using the vaccine to divide us, using partisanship,
I mean, I think the division is a byproduct of other goals. I don't think the goal is explicitly like we're going to divide with this issue and focus on it. I think that people have issues that they care about a lot, and then people end up being divided on it. So whether we're talking about people on the left dividing people with coronavirus or Republicans dividing people with abortion, I don't think anybody's goal is to divide somebody with a topic. It's just you have things you care a lot about, and then you push it, and those topics end up becoming divisive because people disagree with them.
Look, I think people's uninformed nature leads to bad policy and authoritarian policy. We've seen the polling that a bunch of people in this country think that the hospitalization rate for COVID-19 is over 50%, over 30%. So, like, people think that COVID sends you to the hospital like smallpox. I understand why they're pressuring their governments to pass regulations to treat it like smallpox.
Russ Doe had a column in the New York Times where he was saying that what if COVID was 10 times more deadly? And my response was like, well, yeah, then I'd be there with you, right? That I would understand some of this stuff, and that we could take those steps, right? If it was as deadly as smallpox, then yes, certainly we would be using much more drastic measures. But when it comes to this, I find it very interesting that we argue more about the effects of the steps that we're going to be taking on this, rather than, for me, I've been a big, proponent of understanding where COVID came from, understanding this process, the NIH process, and looking into, early January 2020, I was like one of the first guys in the country who was reading the Mandarin on various Chinese blogs, trying to figure out what the heck was going on in Wuhan, and then digging into the lab and everything else. And it's amazing to me how that, which really seems like something that a country could unite on, and I don't mean to drive the conversation
One of
with
them is
this,
really
that has
good
been
up there.
completely usurped by instead, no, we're going to have these divisive mandates. And it's amazing to me that when I see Joe Biden, every time he announces a mandate, it's because he's trying to distract from something that's just happened. So Afghanistan falls apart. He announces he's going to push nationwide mandates. Then he has a political loss. He's suffering badly in the polls. He announces that OSHA is going to fund, just this last week, right, is going to push the new rule. 49 pages, the thing comes out, everyone's going to be fined. And so everybody then goes and talks about the mandates. At the same time, you're seeing the ordering of vaccinations for children in New York State. And so it's looking at it again, like, because I do look at everything through the regime, not everything, but I look at a lot of this through the politics of, or the lens of regime politics, that you can really see that a lot of what the regime, and to your point, I do think this is something that a lot of people care about, but I can see that the way that the timing of these orders is really being pushed to help and benefit the regime in terms of the larger narrative.
I would also say that the idea that I am supposed to put my child at risk, because there is risk to both things, right? If you want to say there is risk that my child might be one of the few who gets COVID-19 and has some sort of long-term complications or, passes away. There's risk there. There is also a risk when you are talking about a medicine, a drug that you are injecting into your body. And I just think the idea that I am supposed to put my child at risk for a stranger at the supermarket that I don't even know. I am beholden to some stranger in society more so than I am to my own family is absolutely preposterous.
I mean, you can play that on both sides, though. Maybe you think you don't want to put your child. I wouldn't want to put my child at risk being in a classroom with your child. I don't want my child to contract something.
Then stay home.
I don't want.
Then stay home.
No, but your child is the problem, not mine. Because I'm
It's
willing
not,
for
though.
my child to
You
take
can't
the minimum
spread a
number of
virus
steps
that you don't
necessary.
have.
I'm willing to have my child take the minimum steps necessary to make sure that they're safe and they protect their classmates as well. I'm guessing you're probably against children wearing masks too, or other types of.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so
It's abusive. It's abusive.
But the problem is,
My child never wore a mask.
If my child catches something or gets something because another student isn't taking the minimum preventative risks, and we know that children are pretty tenacious when it comes to the coronavirus, they're probably not going to die. They're probably not even going to get seriously ill. But if they bring that home to grandma and grandpa, and now grandma and grandpa died because you decided to fill out a bullshit exemption for your kid because you didn't want them to get a vaccination because of a stranger in a supermarket, that's just absolutely absurd.
Okay, so hold on.
Really?
So here's the thing. It's if your mask works, if your vaccine works, if your child's vaccine works, you shouldn't have to worry about my child. My child is not a threat to you.
I don't.
If you believe in your science, then believe in your science. You're fine. And if you don't and you're worried about my child, what does that say?
I cannot understand how conservatives are so bad with probability. It absolutely blows my mind. If your seatbelt works, why do you have an airbag? If your airbag works, why does your car crumple? If this all works, why do you care about other drunk drivers? Like, you can make the dumbest one in the world, but this every single
That's
thing
not
that
at
you
all
do, it
a great
absolutely
analogy.
is completely one-to-one in comparison. The things that you do epidemiologically is not we're going to do this one thing and 100% prevent the virus, and if we don't, it's a failure. It's all the little steps that you take on the way. If everybody social distance and mask, you prevent the spread this much. If everybody did that and then got vaccinated, you prevent it this much. If everybody stays home, this is how it works. All of it is probabilistic. This idea that, well, you've got something that increases your probability by this percent, so now nobody has anything. It's the dumbest look at.
So if you are living in a free society, if you choose to live in a free society and you choose to go into society, you are accepting the risk that you will get a transmissible disease every time you exit your home. That is how a free society works. You will never vaccinate every virus out of the population. You will always have sickness and we will always transmit diseases because that's just the way a free society works. So if you are worried about what everyone else is transmitting, you are the one who should stay at home. Because we've always transmitted flu at the supermarket. No one's been worried about that. We've always transmitted diseases. No one's been worried about it.
We don't live in a free society. We live in a democratically elected representative government. So if most of the public decides that these mandates are indeed necessary for you to participate in society, then you are the one that is going to have to abide by what the public.
So what if the
tells us.
majority
That
doesn't
is how
believe
our
that?
government works. That's how our
Let me
system
ask
works.
a
We're in a
question.
democratically elected republic. That's how it works.
How do you define rights? I'd like to know how you define rights. Like this will actually get us back on topic a little bit. Where do rights come from? Because it sounds to me
there's a whole other conversation on, do we believe rights come from God? Do we believe they come from government? Do we talk about
But
positive
it
rights
sounds
versus
to me
negative
like
rights?
you're saying it's within your right for the majority to dictate force against others. So, for example, if the majority of people say we should enslave people, then we should enslave people.
So
Is
we
that
can
what
have,
you're saying?
we have etched out in our Constitution. There are going to be minimums, or there are going to be certain inalienable rights that we cannot take from other people, and that's up to the courts to decide
Bodily
for us
autonomy?
to change the Constitution. Otherwise, right? You can say bodily autonomy you want, but vaccinations are required for children going to public schools,
Yeah,
right?
what we discussed
the point
that,
is
like-
that rights exist on paper. Okay, it doesn't matter what right we talk about if we can't leave our house because we're worried about something, or if we can't go. Now, I'm not saying that the coronavirus is so
choice.
bad you can never leave leave the house. I'm just saying that in order for society to function, we don't all work in this ultimately free way. We have a responsibility to other people around us. Conservatives should understand this the best because conservatives are the most local people that tend to participate locally in their churches, in their charities. They give more than liberals do. You guys should know this better than anyone else, and that in order for society to function, to be well lubricated, to not have a lot of friction, you have to have some minimum level of buy-in in terms of how you treat the people around you. One of the ways you treat people nice is by not volunteering as a bioterrorism weapon because you don't want to get vaccinated because of something that fucking Anderson Cooper said on CNN.
For someone who claims that conservatives have a hard time believing in science, you seem to not understand the idea that no one can spread a virus that they don't have.
And also, my rights aren't.
I'm not a bioterrorist weapon by going to the grocery store if I don't have a virus. Your assumption that everyone else you come into contact with, if they are not vaccinated, must have COVID is ridiculous.
But there's an increased probability.
No, but like my rights are not subject to your inability to assess risk properly. You're talking about people afraid to leave their homes because of the coronavirus.
I literally
You're talking
said
about children being afraid to go to school or parents afraid for their children to go to school. The risk is near zero. Also, when Biden was announcing the vaccine mandates and what he was proposing, he said breakthrough cases were 1 in 5,000. Breakthrough hospitalizations, again from the president, were 1 in 160,000. I think 1 in 160,000 is not enough to infringe on other people's rights. Jack said it earlier. If COVID was 10 times, 20 times more deadly and more deadly for children, we'd be having a different conversation. But we need to assess the risk.
You wouldn't have to mandate it.
The answer to this is simple.
You wouldn't have to mandate it. People would go get it.
You vaccinate, everyone vaccinate, then you will plug into Zuckerverse, and in Zuckerverse we will all vaccinate each other multiple times a day. You'll be taking every new vaccine, then the pill comes out, the injections will continue until compliance has been achieved.
So, just to attempt to get us back on topic.
But there is there is a bigger question here, right? And I think we should separate the two over like are vaccines good versus should vaccines be mandated, right? Isn't that I mean that's like two separate things, right?
Correct. I think it boils down to, do you believe, we'll have time for questions in just 1 second, but do you believe that the government,
Be very
some
quiet,
people
audience.
phrase
We
it
don't
this
want to
way,
hear from
do
you.
you believe that the government owns individuals or individuals own themselves? And is this a part of our American narrative that we've lost? Like, what did the founders intend when they talk about liberty? When I asked the first question on this panel,
Who the fuck cares about what the founders
the founding
wanted?
principles, if you were to explain them to a child, like
Why do we always
what
refer
is
back
America?
to the
What
founders?
does it mean to be an American?
Founders. Dude, that was
Does anybody have an
300
answer for
fucking
that?
years
How do
ago.
you define
There are no rights. Rights come from me if I give them to you. You're not allowed to have these silly things. You silly people. There are no rights. The government has rights, and you are children who will obey what we tell you. We might make you think you have the right to vote for this approved candidate or that approved candidate, or have arguments from this approved source and that approved source asking this approved question or that approved question. But at the end of the day, you have nothing. This is silly.
Jack has the weirdest filibusters. I was gonna say, I think fundamentally, like the American identity, like we should all have an understanding of what like the principles of America mean. Like I want to move past that. I think fundamentally what separates Americans from other peoples in other nations around the world is that we have like an optimistic mindset, and this is in part due to our structure of government. Like people always say, we're the first nation to put freedom of religion in the Constitution. We're also the first nation to put intellectual property rights in the Constitution, because the idea of America is that if you invent it, you own it, you take it as far as you can take it, because it's your adventure. And we see the American optimism in different aspects of our lives. Go watch the ending of a British sitcom. The joke is always on the main character. American sitcoms always uplift the main character. This is because fundamentally we're an optimistic people, and we shouldn't lose the fact that we're an optimistic people. The Hollywood ending, when Hollywood used to reflect our values more, is a thing because that is reflective of our American values, that we want the hero to win. We want, like, we're rooting for good over evil, not to make it so dramatic like that. That's not the same in other nations, and I see us becoming more cynical, less optimistic, talking about subversive things like national divorce, just giving up, packing it in, dividing up the country, as if that's not going to lead to a civil war. So we got to hold on to that optimistic ideal, because that's what America is. It's the adventure, not the result.
there's a great kind of like it's one of those memes that's out there, and it's it's talking about the differences in literature. So for different societies, and so the stereotypical American, it's it's like, I will die for liberty, right? And then it's got the British, British literature is, I will die for honor, and then the French, of course, I will die for love, and then the Russian is like, I will die. And it's sort of this like very cynical, very Eastern, kind of thinking. And I do feel though that we have lost kind of that American sort of sense of, if I have liberty, it's not just liberty for the sake of being able to do whatever I feel like. It's liberty, it's what you say, to achieve those optimistic goals, to achieve those optimistic ends, because we don't want to be stuck in the pod eating the bugs. We want to be adventurous and take risks. If everyone here, right, unless you're native, your parents came, or even if you are native, if you go back, that your parents came or your ancestors came on a dangerous and arduous voyage to get here. So we were self-selected to be part of this experiment, over time. And I think we all do come from that stock. And so adventure seeking, we're in Texas, right? This is the home of the cowboy, right? What is the more American stereotypical archetype than the cowboy, riding out with, the 10-gallon hat and being on the range? This is the American figure. Now, look, I'm from Philadelphia. I'm not a cowboy, but that there is a huge part of the American mythos that's tied up in that, and it's a figure that people strive to kind of emulate. And I think that we have lost. Getting back to the original question, we have lost that as a country. We've totally lost that as a country.
I will say, just as a quick note, that your go-to example for like American values was what came from Mexican cowboys. I think that's kind of funny. But regardless of that, I think that we talk a lot about liberty in terms of what are we guaranteed on paper? What can we do on paper? I wish that the conversation would move past that, because it is so unbelievably boring to hear about how much opportunity you have on paper.
Wait,
you don't
what
actually
the
have
fuck?
the opportunity in
Hello?
your life.
Huh?
Like it's when you can go to so many different countries across Europe and people have access to education, they have access to healthcare. They might have to wait in line for it, but they get it. When they have access to like actual opportunity, and then we brag, well, in the United States, you could go from selling crack to being the CEO of a major company. I find those conversations wholly unsatisfying. I wish that we would talk more about how do we actually ensure that people have actual real access to opportunity, rather than jerking ourselves off about words on paper that don't mean much for a lot of the American public right now. We talk about how the public is in the United States generally optimistic, and then we try to use British cynicism to say they want evil to win over good. I don't know if I agree with that, but if you want to look for optimism, look at the millennial crowd that came up after one of the worst recessions in U.S. history. Or look at people right now that can't afford to move to another city to get a job. Or look at people that can't afford to go to college. Or look at people that feel like they have to live with their parents till they're 30 years old. I think that we have problems in this country that go past just the wording in the Constitution, and it seems like we're unwilling to come together to acknowledge that reality from the left and right, and actually work to fix those problems.
I would say I think that we would acknowledge that there are problems that exist. I think that we would just disagree on the reason for the problem, is I think the issue. I agree. I think when my kids get that old, I sure as hell don't want them living with me, right? I understand the problem of millennials having to live with their parents, but why is that? I would argue that we have a generation of people growing up who are entitled, who don't understand how to spend money.
This debate's not as fun
spend
as the
themselves
last
into
debate.
debt,
Am I right?
don't understand financial responsibility, and that those are the reasons driving what you just mentioned, right?
Where do they get those values
I'm
from?
not done. But as you're about to do, you would argue that it's something different, right? But what I'm saying is, I don't think that we disagree that there's a problem. We disagree on the root cause of the problem.
I just want to point out that one person clapped for there is no opportunity, and I found that hilarious.
No, I think you're right though when you say that it's a knock on conservatives, and I think it's a good one. I give you credit for saying it. That conservatives will just kind of be in this sort of you're stuck in one of those C++ routines, if you know anything about coding, where you're just the Constitution over and over. Whereas for huge swaths of the country, they're saying, look, my job went overseas and my town died because the factory closed, and I don't know what I'm going to do to feed my family, and this town is falling apart. And so, you telling me, hey, the Constitution, bro, right? It doesn't really do much to help me and help my family. Or, if you're younger, it doesn't really help my prospects. And you talk about millennials as well. And I think that, as someone I was born in '84, so we were sort of like the elder millennial, centennial kind of thing. And, you know, you look at, if you came of age during, you know, the financial crisis, that you were in debt, you were not getting a job, basically, you know, a lot of people then went back to school, they continued to get more into debt, and a lot of this stuff was driven by insane speculation on Wall Street, which was, of course, provided for them by the government. Nobody went to jail for any of this stuff. And the way that people decided to fix the system was to take away, like strip ownership away from, you know, millennials, Zoomers, and the rest of it, and to say, well, maybe home ownership isn't something. No, home ownership, of course, was what was the traditional. We talked about the American archetype being the cowboy, but what is the American dream? Right? The American dream used to be owning your own home. This was like the synonymous thing everyone was told, and that, you know, the path was laid out. Go to school, get your bachelor's degree, get a job, get a wife, have some kids, boom, there's your house, you're good to go, right? That's totally been broken, and it's been broken for a long time. And a lot of Republicans are running around thinking it's still the 1980s and using these boring, I agree with you, like boring arguments, and not talking about what's actually happening, because you see the same financial institutions and the same government institutions coming in and saying the problem with all of this was those stupid people thinking that they could own their own homes. We need to take that away from them. We need to take ownership away from them, take away the ability for them to generate, to build that generational wealth that they could actually then use, you know, to seek. You talk about opportunities, but, you know, you're exactly right that there's so many challenges that have been put in place by this system, this corrupt system, that's preventing people from actually achieving any of these ends that we'd really like for there to be. But it isn't just, you know, their beliefs, and it isn't just not understanding the Constitution. It's actual huge structural problems in our country.
Look, I would agree that there are problems in the country, but the reason I'm emphasizing that America is about the adventure, and I didn't say Constitution, bro. I'm just saying, like, I specifically didn't do that.
But I did mean you.
Like,
you fool.
I feel sympathetic for a lot of small town America, and there are some instances where small town America has like fallen apart, not due to circumstances not their own. I mean, the fact that we allowed pain pills to flood this nation and then cut them off, and that led to disaster.
Thanks, Frank Luntz.
Yeah, everybody understands that. But like, we have to also understand that the reason the Rust Belt existed, all those areas had manufacturing, is not because it was ordained by God that manufacturing would be there. It's because they had access to waterways, and it was expensive as hell to transport anything in this country or anywhere by
Please, just let me land on fucking
If you were to
gun,
ship
bro.
a product from Pittsburgh to New York, which is only 300 miles over ground, you would send it on rivers down to the Mississippi, out of the port of New Orleans, up the East Coast, into New York's port. So what happened in the 70s was not like a giant conspiracy. It was that somebody invented two things. One, ground transportation got less expensive. There was containerization, so you could ship stuff over large portions of the country. And two, we invented air conditioning, which is awesome. The reason we're all here in Texas is because of air conditioning. You know what else was allowed to come to Texas because of air conditioning? Manufacturing. This is why, like, the death of Michigan coincides not with the rise of these foreign auto companies, although that did play a part. Competition is a real thing, but it coincides with the rise of Auto Alley in South Carolina. So we can talk about like restoring Michigan and restoring all of these like different places, but in reality, the major problems that they have are problems of them passing laws based on their natural advantages that no longer exist anymore, and people should move when the jobs move. Like, there is too much complacency in this country. Like, it's just a fact.
I think there's also an issue, too, when we talk about some of the older values that were sold. I think to some extent we have to acknowledge that as we continue to grow as a country, it's not going to be possible to do these things. You know, if you want to buy a house and have a family and be able to afford all of that off of a single job today, people will tell you it's impossible, but it's totally possible. You just have to move to Montana or Wyoming to do it. You're not going to be able to go to LA. You're not going to be able to go to New York. You're not going to be able to go to Miami. You're not going to be able to go to San Francisco and have the single family home off the one job and the mom at home staying with the kids, because it's just not affordable. It's not possible. We have so many people that live in this country today and so many people that want to move into cities. If you're trying to sell them simultaneously this idea that they can have the single family home and the white picket fence while also living in the most economically prosperous areas in the United States, it's a physics problem. You just can't do it.
No. move to Houston if you want to do that. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the United States of America, and incomes grow faster than the cost of living up until they had a bunch of transplants from New Orleans, but even that is correcting. The reason why is because Houston has no zoning regulations. So if you want to live next to a parking lot in your cul-de-sac, like that's totally dope. You can see those images online. But also Dallas-Fort Worth area is very inexpensive because they have virtually no zoning regulations. Like the reason you can't afford to live in San Francisco or New York, and I live in New York and I can't afford to live there, is because of zoning regulations, it's because of open space laws, all of these restrictions that people who live there are imposing on people who could move there because they want to have a nice little bit of scenery that they can look at. Well, I'm a capitalist. If you want scenery, buy that property that has the scenery and you pay for it. Don't vote to keep future generations out. Like that is a complete violation of our rights to due process and equal protection under the law, that just because you showed up first, you can vote to ban these other people. But yeah, if you want to move to a big, growing city, Houston is the one.
I think.
I mean Dallas. Dallas, Fort Worth.
Go Cowboys.
Found the Dallas. Yeah.
You'll have to get your passport from me.
Yeah, that got more of a boo than the Eagles thing.
So I've got a final question, then we're going to go to a Q&A. And this brings up something you've mentioned, Sean. Comedian Sarah Silverman recently has talked about the possibility of a national divorce. It's a phrase that I'm hearing more in popular culture in the past 6 months. And we're sitting here in the great state of Texas, which has a growing favorability rate for the Texit movement. My question is, do you think we're at a place where the political and cultural divide is so great that it would be better to have an amicable parting of ways? And make your case to me either way, because my mind is not yet made up.
Listen, there's no such thing as an amicable parting of ways. That's live action role playing. Stop doing it. And if you think there is, please draw me the map of how we divide up the Mississippi River, because international trade still requires water-based transportation. So show me your map of the United States where the coasts are given to the left and the interior has to use the network of rivers to go to the Mississippi to get out of the port of New Orleans, that's going to make sense and not lead to a civil war. It's nonsense, it's subversive, and I'm not in for it.
Yeah, I have two really quick takes on the national divorce thing. Number one is that we're probably not going to get a national divorce. We'll have more like a national separation. Like, we're still living under the same roof for the sake of the normies, but we're sleeping in separate bedrooms. We're dating other people. It's just but we got to stay together for the sake of the normies, so we don't go down that road. But then number two is that I find it very interesting, just from sociological perspective, that every single person I see who's totally for a national divorce, I'm definitely not one of them, but they're all Gen Xers. And it's like, divorce is the answer for everything for Gen X, right? Just get divorced, man. Just walk, bro. Just get out of there. And it's like, it's such a Gen X thing. And so what's interesting is that, as that sort of cusp, centennial generation, it's sort of like, we have we're not quite as, what is it? We still have like youthful hope in the sort of elder millennial area, but we also but we don't get the cynicism and the jadedness of Gen X.
I think if I were to imagine that you said amicable, if I were to imagine that it could be amicable, which I agree with Sean, I don't think that it could be when you're really looking at the details and the logistics of it. There are days where I wake up and I say, I'm really tired of being hated. I'm really tired of being told I'm a bioterrorist threat. I'm really tired of my children being told that they're a bioterrorist threat. I'd really love to live with my own people, and I would love that. But I think when you look at the logistics of it, I'm just not sure that it's possible. I will say, when you mentioned Texit, I did see my friend Chad Prather. I know he's coming up later. I would just like to say he is running for governor. And if you want to know about Texit, you should ask him more about that. But I don't know how possible it is, but I will admit, in my weaker moments, there are days where I'm like, I'm just kind of done being hated. I would much prefer rejoining with the people who believe in the foundational principles of this country.
I think it's LARPing cringe. I think most people up here seem it's LARPing, live action roleplay. You pretend it's not gonna happen. Logistically, it doesn't make any sense. I haven't seen people talking about it seriously, but I'd be curious what those maps look like too, because I feel like people miss that one of the big divides in this country, it's really not so much red states and blue states, although those exist, but it's like blue cities and red rural areas. And I think that when that's your largest divide, I don't even know how you'd go about cutting up the map to figure out like who would be in which area and how you. I don't know, it seems completely impossible.
We also have quite a division between like people who can defend themselves and people who can't. So people who can defend themselves, and we've seen this historically throughout cultures, will tend to think freely because they don't they're not seeking consensus. So if they're saying something, it's, am I saying this because it is true, versus if you're someone who can't defend yourself, you're thinking, can I say this because it will be accepted by the collective?
And if you want to wrestle more local control, I know you have to go to questions, then put that energy into repealing the 17th Amendment. Most of the problems in our country that we're all concerned about like power drifting to the federal government, are due to the fact that we directly elect our senators and they're federal entities. There's a reason all these court nominees were confirmed by the state's representative senates, because the state legislatures used to send the senators. It's because the courts are meant to adjudicate disputes between the states and the federal government. So you have the president, an agent of the federal government, appointed and confirmed by the senators who are agents of the states. We don't have that, and we wonder why power keeps trickling up to the federal government. We removed a major check and balance in our federal government, and we pretend like, I wonder why things are going that way.
I mean, that's really what I mean by national separation. Empower the states. National separation, it also used to be called federalism, which is something we had in this country.
We're going to go to Q&A, but I'm going to ask one quick question. You have 10 seconds, Stephen. What is the national, unifying narrative for this country if we are going to stay together?
I have no idea. I don't think there is a unified narrative for the United States. No.
Let's start with questions.
Well, on behalf of all the Gen Xers, I am not jaded. Very excited to be here. I have a Built Bar wrapper. I wanted to give it to you, Sarah, but I ate it. Sorry about that. Just to get back to the most contentious thing, because I really see it in Dallas, and I'm from California, dividing us is how can you, Sarah, and Steve, is it Steve? Be together, live together, commune together when you do not want to get the vax and will not get the vax, and your children won't, and they won't wear the masks, and you seriously believe that it's a major health issue and that you're a bioterrorist. How do you get that to work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Stephen would have a different answer than I would, but I would argue that that's just how we've been living in society this whole time, and it should work no differently than we've been living in society this entire time. We all make different choices for our own bodies. We all can make those choices. We all have the ability to make those choices, and I'm not going to judge someone for getting the vaccine. I don't think anyone should judge me for not getting the vaccine, because again, we live in a society where risk of transmitting disease is literally always going to be 100%. We're always going to transmit diseases. I'm willing to understand that and accept the risks. If someone else isn't willing to understand that and accept the risks, there's only so much I can do. So I'm happy to live with people who do or don't or whatever. In fact, I don't care to know their medical status, and I think that that's the problem. Is that you have one side of the aisle who says, I actually don't
you can
really
get that
care,
lifeline. I'm about to
your
have Red
medical
anyways.
privacy. I believe that should stay private, and then there is one side of the aisle who, again, thinks that I am a bioterrorist threat. So I hope he has a great answer for how we can come together, because I would love to hear it.
So I am absolutely judgmental, very much so, people that I disagree with. However, in the United States, you have two options, basically. So we live in a democracy. I've said this over and over again. I'll continue to say it. I can push for the things that I believe in, and I can hope that those policies are popular enough to get elected. If the ones that I agree with don't get enacted, I have two options. I either abide by it, and you do it, and there are policies that I disagree with, and you abide by it, and that's how it goes. Or you take your child out, or you remove yourself from whatever situation it is that you don't agree with. If I think that the way that speed limits are done in a way that I don't agree with, then stop driving. Or if you think that the way, if I felt very strongly about vaccine mandates for children and they weren't mandated, then you take your child out of school and you do homeschooling, right?
Well, would you agree though that if we had, like what Sean and I are saying, that if we had more empowered states and that it wasn't a federal thing, that if there were a state law that said that, and go with the moving, that hey, I want to live in a state where my policies are more accepted versus coming to a place like Texas or wherever, like Texas versus California kind of question. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, states have a right. I mean, it has to be decided on a legal battle. I don't know where the rights of the states end and the federal governments begin when it comes to matters of public health and whatnot. But I mean, that's something that the courts fight about. But yeah, I mean, some states have different laws for different things, and obviously you respect the different laws of the different states depending on where you live. Yeah.
I believe the precedent that's often cited for why the vaccine mandates are constitutional is a state vaccine
It is,
mandate.
yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
The central principle is consent of the governed. That's the most important phrase. Consent of the governed, that's the most important phrase in the Declaration of Independence. That's the basis of the Constitution. It requires accountability, which nobody out here, whether you're left or right, is actually seeing in our government. And with accountability, you get credibility, which also is what's lacking with regard to our government. And nobody out here actually thinks that the government gives a damn what we think. The mandate was not part of the last presidential election. Nobody ran on it. Nobody voted for it. So my question is, can y'all agree that consent of the governed and the rules that we play by is actually the way to get back to where we need to be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you absolutely do consent. Every single decree of the United States government is not voted on by direct democracy. We vote for people that represent us, and then we hope that they enact whatever agenda that we agree with. If we don't, then you go and you vote them out next legislative session. But the idea that just because the president is enacting something or something comes from Congress that we don't directly vote on, it's not the will of the people, I think that betrays a misunderstanding of how our federal government is supposed to work.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I would agree with that to a certain extent. The idea that if something is not in a campaign or in a platform, therefore you didn't consent to it. It's like, no, we do have a representative republic. So you send representatives for a period of time. They don't have to tell you literally everything they do. They should, but you have the opportunity to punish them at the ballot box. However, we have a system where supposedly, allegedly, theoretically, the legislature makes laws, and the president shouldn't be able to look at an OSHA regulation that has to do with people wearing hard hats and say that that applies to a national vaccine mandate. So
you stupid people.
So we
you
don't
think you have rights again. You have none. You have nothing. We'll mandate everything for you from now on. This is how it goes.
By the way, just to add to Sean's point, these are, and it's not just the OSHA regulation, right? It's also the CDC being used as another arm to enforce the eviction moratorium. I mean, we're seeing these departments being abused, and admittedly, the Biden administration already said, yeah, this really isn't legal. We really shouldn't be doing this, but we're going to do it anyway. So, I mean, I would agree with you, Sean. I think, like, if we were to get back to the actual system that we were supposed to have with checks and balances and the legislature working as it's supposed to, then I think that would be way better than the system we have now, which is clearly an abuse of power.
I mean, we say abuse, but it's a conservative court right now. If you think that it's being abused, you challenge it legislatively. If the Supreme Court upholds it, then maybe these federal institutions had more power than we knew originally. Or maybe we should vote in Congress to remove some of the powers that are delegated to them. There's a great deal of deference given to executive agencies when it comes to how they want to implement or enact their particular laws. Maybe that could be scaled back on, but I don't like the idea of saying that, like, it's illegally used or it's not really legal. It's like, I mean, if you don't like it, you have a Supreme Court that is conservative. You can challenge it.
Right. Unfortunately, a Supreme Court case doesn't go there overnight, right? Like it takes time. Right, it takes time. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but there's not always an immediate fix.
A lot of the lefties, when they were against the wars, would talk about how the war wasn't declared and the president shouldn't just be able to do this, that, and the other. I agree with that in principle. Like, you can't transfer your duties to another branch of the government. That's not how checks and balances work. And the Supreme Court did shut down the eviction moratorium twice. Once they were like, you know what, we'll give Biden a little break. So it was a soft shutdown, and then he took advantage of that to expand it again. And he knew he had no authority, admitted it, he did it anyway.
All right. This question is for Destiny, Steven, whichever you prefer. Do you believe that people on the right, including some of the people on this panel, actually believe that the left is goading them into extremism? Or do you think that they're intentionally lying to gaslight moderates and the left?
One of the hugest problems, what? Yeah, true, you are, am I right? I think it is absolutely fucking horrible how crazy everybody is on different sides of the political aisle. I will, unless I have a really good reason to believe so, I will never think that somebody is acting in some malicious or horrible manner.
Gibraltar, you're fucking
I think
nuts,
that you probably
my man.
genuinely do believe that you're doing what's best for your family and your children. I would hope so.
I know I am.
And I would assume the same of any conservative conservative. I think that people
Nuts.
on the left and people on the right all too often get into these mindsets where they're very quick to demonize or frame how other people are acting in the very worst of ways. But I mean, like, that's just the nature, unfortunately, of the,
You see that,
political
Sean?
landscape.
You see
that we've
this,
carved
Sean?
out.
You cannot simply run around calling everyone a pedophile.
Yeah, my question is actually for actual Justice Warrior. Earlier, you were making a point about the left not understanding the right, and you cited a study from Dr. Jonathan Haidt about that. I was curious why you didn't mention the fact that that study actually said that everybody over-exaggerates the differences between everybody. It's just that mostly left people have larger discrepancies between those things. So if you were aware of that difference, the actual conclusion of the study, why didn't you say it? And if you don't know that, then why are you citing studies that you haven't read?
Okay. All right. So what he's talking about is there's Jonathan Haidt's research. They have people fill out surveys about their values as themselves and as other people, right? So obviously, this should go without saying. People aren't 100% in filling out the values when they fill them out as other people. But the overall conclusion, and this is in his book and it's in his research, is that the further left you are,